Imagine waking up to a debt of $3 billion. It is a sum so massive that even if you lived for 150,000 years, you could never earn enough as a laborer to pay it back. This isn't a modern financial thriller. It is the opening scene of one of the most shocking stories ever told by Jesus, the parable of the unmerciful servant. Most people know this story as a simple lesson on being nice, but when you look at the details, the ancient economics, the social power plays of honor and shame, and the disturbing Greek words used for the ending, you'll see it is actually a high-stakes warning about life and death. The story begins with Peter asking a question, "Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me and I still forgive him? Up to 7 times?" Peter likely thought he was being incredibly generous, because many Jewish rabbis taught that 3 times was enough. But Jesus responds with a, quote, a punchline that would have stunned Peter, up to 70 times 7. This isn't just a big number. It's a direct reversal of the Song of Lamech from Genesis, where a man named Lamech boasted about taking revenge 77-fold. Jesus is telling Peter that his followers must be as eager to forgive as the most vengeful men in history were eager to kill. To explain this, Jesus tells the story of a king settling accounts. One servant is brought in who owes 10,000 talents. Let's get into the detail of that number. A myriad, 10,000, was the largest number in Greek accounting, and a talent was the heaviest unit of currency. 1 talent was worth about 6,000 denarii, the equivalent of 15 years of labor. 10,000 talents is roughly 60 million days of wages. In modern terms, using a $50 per day wage, this servant owed the king $3 billion. This servant was likely a high-ranking official or tax farmer who had embezzled or failed to collect massive tributes for the king. Because he could never pay, the king ordered him, his wife, his children, and everything he owned to be sold. The servant falls to his knees and begs, "Have patience with me, and I will repay you everything." In the painting by Jan van Hemesen, you can see this man with his hands anxiously intertwined, pleading for a life he knows he's forfeited. But here is the twist. The king doesn't just give him more time. He feels compassion, Splanknistheis, and cancels the entire debt. In a world governed by patronage and clientism, this was an act of extreme patronage generosity, designed to bring the king incredible honor. But the story takes a dark turn. That same servant walks out and finds a fellow servant who owes him 100 denarii. How much is that? A denarius was a day's wage, so this was about $5,000. It wasn't nothing, but compared to the $3 billion he was just forgiven, it was a, quote, trifling debt. Instead of showing the same mercy he received, the first servant grabs the man by the throat and begins to choke him, demanding immediate payment. When the fellow servant uses the exact same plea, "Have patience with me," the first servant refuses and throws him into prison. Social scientific experts point out that by doing this, the servant shamed the king. He accepted the king's mercy but refused to adopt the king's values, making the king look like a weak fool for letting a cruel man go free. When the other servants see this, they are deeply grieved and report everything to the king. The king summons the man back and says, "You wicked servant! I forgave you all that debt because you besought me, and should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" Now comes the extreme detail that disturbs many readers. The king doesn't just send him to prison. He hands him over to the torturers, Basanistes, until the $3 billion is paid. In Greek, Basanistes can mean an interrogator or a jailer who uses torment to squeeze money out of a debtor's family. Since the debt is impossible to pay, this is essentially an eternal sentence. Jesus ends with a chilling application. "My heavenly Father will also do the same to you, if each of you does not forgive his brother from your heart, apoton cardion." The lesson is clear. If we truly understood the immeasurable debt of our own sins that God has wiped out, we could never hold a trifling debt against someone else. Forgiveness isn't just about saying the words. It is a theological act of divine restoration that must happen in the seat of our thoughts and emotions. If you're holding on to a grudge today, remember the servant and the $3 billion. Holding on to that denarius might just be keeping you in a prison of your own making. If this deep dive helped you understand this parable, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives from the Bible.